guys? Welcome back to State of the Galaxy. This is episode 2. We are having we're going to have a significantly reduced roster this time because we've got a second guild run going, trying to kill the Dreadmasters. Death and Taxes has recently expanded, so now we've got multiple groups running. So that's the reason for that. Most of our roster is actually either on alts or on their new mains. Trying to take care of that. This week we're going to be talking a lot about what's new since last time we had an episode of this, and that's basically guild ships and guild conquests. So without further ado, let's get right to it. My opinion on conquests is that it's fairly disappointing. To me, it feels like a temporary achievement system called by another name, where you get public neckbeard points for people who really like to grind.
I feel like one of the biggest issues with guild conquests in the whole system, at least to me, it's not even necessarily the content, which by in and of itself is disappointing, but it just feels like this is something that did not need to be delayed for. We waited an extra patch because, oh my god, Guild Conquest is going to be awesome. You guys are going to be so excited, and then we get to it, and then there's one new thing in the game, and then the rest of it is just, alright guys, this month you're going to be going to Alderaan, and you're going to do the heroic 20 times on all your alts. It just doesn't seem like content to me.
Well, it feels, I think I remember them saying that your planetary objectives will change every week, and sometimes there will be more planets available that week, which is something we're gonna get into as far as competition between guilds go. I was under the impression that it got delayed because it just wasn't ready. Housing, I don't think was ready in general.
I'm sure that it wasn't ready, but the reason that they gave us for the delay actually was about Guild Conquest. They said that they wanted to have more features, and they wanted it to be at a higher level than I guess they assumed the expectations would be. And it's just, I don't know. I mean, but the other issue is housing doesn't look ready on PTS, and of course it's a beta-ish thing, so of course it won't be ready, but it feels like there's a lot of work to be done for it to get to the point where when it launches it's ready. And I have a feeling that when it launches for subs or whatever, it's still going to be broken as balls, and there's going to be random bugs. And then by the time it goes to the free-to-play people, quote-unquote, then it will be working. Until then, we're going to have something on live that's going to be quote-unquote working as intended, TM.
I mean, I've spent a few hours doing the housing, and it's pretty decent. They fixed the NPC orientation stuff, for example, since I've played. They still have some bugs to work out with my alts not being able to edit my stronghold at all. I'm pretty sure only one of my alts can actually do that now, which is better than none of them, which during the first iteration. So yeah, I actually think it was because Strongholds just wasn't ready for 2.8, and they had to push it back out of necessity. I don't think it was because of Conquests. I think because I cannot imagine that since Conquests are tracked like achievements are, I would not be surprised if they're using a lot of the same, I don't know, speaking as a layman here, from a layman's perspective, I would not be surprised if they're using a lot of the same code to track conquest objectives as they do to track achievements. Because a lot of them is I'll open some up 25 Republic guards defeated. That's a very achievement-y objective. I don't know if you would agree.
No, I would. And then someone on Twitch chat makes a decent point that he thinks housing is great for the meta health of SWTOR, i.e. making old mats and worse crew skills relevant. I agree with that. I think crafting has the chance to be interesting again and make money for people more than just everybody get biochem or everybody get artifice. But I just don't know. Well, yeah, that's true. But my worry is, if you look at how much things cost to craft, it's pretty clear that you're not meant to make crafting your main utilization of how to fill out your stronghold and your guild ship. Like they
Well,
just make it very expensive.
that's definitely true for guild ships. If you never wanted to participate in guild conquests, but you wanted a completed ship, I pulled this off of somebody actually did the math, because you can buy all the components you need to upgrade your guild ship through crafting. You have to craft dark projects, and dark projects cost 3 synthetic energy matrices, 6 alien data cubes, 6 biometric crystal alloys, 3 Rakata energy nodes, in addition to a war supplies thing that you have to craft out of a bunch of old mats. So if you wanted to complete your guild ship and unlock every room, in addition to the credits, you would need 2,700 dark projects. 2,700 dark projects is 8,100 energy matrices, 16,200 alien data cubes, 16,200 crystal alloys, and 8,100 Rakata energy nodes. It is pretty outrageous, and it is absolutely why you have to do conquests if you want to fill out your ship. You have to.
See, that's weird, and that brings up like another like quirk about conquest that I'm not really happy with, and it's that it feels like strongholds and conquests as a whole are for the more casual people, and that's fine. But like, I'll give you an example. I used to be in a casual guild, and I'm still friends with some of them in real life. And we were talking about strongholds, and they have like 5 guild bank tabs filled with these old mats. I mean, they have hundreds of Rakata energy nodes and like all of the other things that you need from EV and KP and EC. Yet at the same time, they only have something like 60 people, like actual people, not characters, people that are in that guild, and at a time there will be like 15 online at peak time. So they will have the ability to craft some of these things and build out their guild ship, but they won't really have an ability to compete in conquest events, and it just feels like on one hand you're making this completely for a more casual side of the game, but then on another you're making those same casual people who would care about it like completely gimped because they're not in a 500-person guild.
Yes, that is one big criticism I would lay at the feet of Conquest. It's that gigantic guilds, and for the record, Death and Taxes is not a gigantic guild. We are about 15 or 16 people who actively play. Gigantic guilds with hundreds of members, whatever planet they choose to invade, they're probably going to get it, unless another bigger guild challenges them. And part of the reason why that is, and something that compounds the issue, is there are certain conquest objectives you can do ad infinitum. Like, let me try and find one. Just completing Warzone matches. That's something you can do ad infinitum, and every time you do it, you get conquest points as an individual. But
it's like 500, isn't it?
It's 500 like per Warzone match and per Starfighter match, shit like that. The ones that you cannot repeat ad infinitum every week, basically the weeklies, you only do once, and once you do them on one character, it's done for your legacy, and your legacy characters do not get those points.
Dumb.
So you can't log on an alt and like... you can't log on an alt and kill the Olgo Siegebreaker again. Or you can't log on an alt and kill an enemy Conquest Commander again, which is actually the really shitty part. That is definitely something that needs to be repeatable, because killing the enemy commander is worth the most points, and it's worth the most mats. It's the one Conquest achievement that is also completely new.
Well, it kind of reminds me of the thing that I don't like about some of the small events that BioWare does, like for instance the bounty event where you can do one bounty a day or one weekly bounty per week. And it's like sometimes I want to be able to not farm it. I don't care if you take away my ability to get mats or credits, but like certain things in this game are fun, and I can only do it once a week, and these events only come around once in a while. Like, you're not always going to have Alvaran as the Conquest event, and if I go kill Olgo and it was fun and I can get another group of other friends, it's like, oh, you've already done it, so there's not really a point. I don't know if I like that. Maybe that's an MMO mechanic that's been around for over a decade, and I'm just new to it. But I'm not a fan.
Oh, I mean, you can go do it. You just won't get
Oh,
any
you
points
can.
for
Oh,
it.
okay. Oh, okay.
Um,
I thought you meant like you'd be locked out of doing
no,
it again.
it's. Let me. I don't know if y'all watched the this week's stream with Jack Wood and Eric Musco, where they actually showed off the ship and did a little bit of what Guild Conquest was. They basically showed off the only new thing, which was the Conquest Commander. I'm looking at the one that they fought. It's got 571,000 hit points. Jack Wood said you're meant to fight it with like 8 to 12 people. If you enter an area with a Conquest Commander, no matter what server you are on, you become flagged for PvP. After, I think it gives you a 10-second warning. It's an opposite faction boss, so the opposing faction can challenge you and fight you while you're fighting it. But this is what is meant to be hit with that Starfighter flyby thing. Also, if you use that Starfighter flyby, which costs 1 Dark Project, which costs all those mats that I told you about earlier, it will hit the opposing faction players in addition to the boss, which is cool. But it's not as cool as I thought it might be.
But if you have the ability to use the flyby, that assumes that you've won the conquest for the week, correct?
Oh, no. You can use the flyby no matter what. It's just the mount you have to win the conquest.
Okay,
of
the
that
mount.
planet for.
Okay, I thought originally that the flyby was only used if you win too, but if
No.
you can use that outside of winning, then I'm fine with that, because
Yeah.
I was kind of frustrated with that aspect.
I think the only restriction with the flyby is that your ship has to be in orbit over the planet that you're using it on. And
Okay, that's much more like interesting for me. Then.
the other thing is you cannot invade a planet that that's in the last 3 days of it being available. Meaning you can't like just sit and wait and see how the scoreboards are playing out for every invadable planet before picking one in the last 3 days. So you're pretty much locked in when you choose one. You're only locked in for that week, though. I think the cycle is that they change every week.
I don't know. I feel like that this system has more potential, and it just feels like they're not really utilizing what they could with it. Like, so with someone in Twitch chat, Soulvane, said that they think that there's a limit per guild member per planet, like 12 to 15 people. And I guess,
I don't
like,
think
if
so.
if that doesn't exist, then I'm not surprised. But if it did exist, that would almost take like out the reasoning behind what they're trying to do with guilds, because I feel like this whole system is part of maybe not coincidental, but it's a plan maybe to get smaller guilds to form with bigger ones, because I think they have to have realized that a lot of people keep playing this game not because of just the content, but because of the people that you play with, and small guilds, maybe not like very active small guilds, but there are many small guilds that die just because random people stop playing with each other and then they just quit playing the game. I feel like maybe this is something to try and get them to get people to keep playing long term.
I'm generally for them promoting guild stability. I'm not for them promoting gigantic mega guilds with hundreds of members at the expense of guilds like ours. Or even like guilds not like ours.
Yeah, I mean, I'm personally fine with this content not being catered to death and taxes. Like the fact that we're not going to be able to realistically compete. Even if we were interested, we wouldn't realistically be able to compete in this event, because on our server there are guilds like, for instance, Empire of Ta, that have so many people that they have a second guild for alts because they met the 500 member requirement. And guilds like that will, regardless of skill level, be able to do more in these events than we will.
Yes, just because
there's no skill in that, though.
I've got the scoreboard up on BTS for Alderaan. The top guild has 3,676,000 points for Alderaan. There's no way that was done by 12 to 15 people. You can definitely overload a planet with your members and completely control it if you're a gigantic guild.
And like, I would be fine if some big guild zerged a planet and they actually like had some great coordination and they had skill and they got everything done and it's like, oh, we won. But in reality, you don't have to have skill to compete in this event, which I'm fine with. But if you're winning a conquest event because you literally have more people on planet and that's about it, like, to me, there's no skill involved in that, and I don't know why people would take it seriously as an event.
The this is the thing that Jack Wood said during the stream. There's 3 planets available to be conquered this week on PTS. It's Alderaan, Voss, and Makeb. He said that to mitigate that, what you just said, to mitigate big guilds, there will be weeks where there is going to be like maybe seven or more planets to conquer at a time. So hopefully that spreads out the big guilds enough that smaller ones can compete over the ones that are less, like, I don't know, that are less competitive, I guess. I don't know.
I feel like that would work on our server, or on a smaller, more condensed server, where you pretty much know all of the big guilds because there's only a couple, and then you have smaller progression guilds, and then you have more casual ones. But on a bigger server like Harbinger, for instance, 7 planets will not be enough to spread out the numbers because there's more than 7 guilds that have like roughly 400 to 500 people. Like, certain servers will have a bigger issue than others. For us, you could do 3 planets, and realistically, that would be enough to spread it out. For Harbinger, they have big APAC guilds. They have big original guilds that are from like the old days of Druga's Pleasure Barge. There are progression guilds on Harbinger that have something like 6 different raid teams and have legitimately like 480 characters at their disposal. Like, I just don't think that will work for everything. It was like sort of an easy way out. Like, oh, well, if you're a small guild, don't worry, because next week you can go on to Ilum and 7 other planets.
Yeah, they would definitely have to open up... on a server like that, they would have to open up basically every planet.
Yeah, I agree.
At once. And I think, let me check the achievements. I don't know how many planets there are available for this system.
And someone in chat, forgive me if I'm pronouncing this incorrectly, I'm guessing it's Noblesse with a silent G, but they're saying that alliances would have been the way to go. Like, so you could keep your guild, but you could meet up with like sister guilds that are of a similar size to make your ability to compete in these events better.
There are 15 planets in the achievement tracker for Galaxy Conqueror. Some of them aren't actually even entire planets. Like, there's Section X on here. And the black hole.
See, some of those things would be stupid. Like imagining black hole as being a conquest area. That's that system is going to be AIDS. Because are you going to have, like, how many instances of black hole are you going to have running at once?
I mean, the way it works is you can earn points elsewhere and have it count towards whatever your guild is. It just depends what your guild chooses to invade. Like, you could invade the black hole and then do all your shit on Alderaan if that's the other one this week or whatever. The only difference is that you don't get a bonus to the points that you earn.
Another thing I'm curious about is I know that there are a number of ways to earn points that aren't even about being on the planet. Like you said, just doing war zones and doing flashpoints and things of that nature. I almost wonder how close you could get to compete without even actually being on the planet. Like, imagine if you park this Executor on Alderaan, right? And then we just do our regular content. I wonder how many points we could get just by playing the game and not actively trying to do anything on it.
I don't think that in my regular weekly play that I hit 35,000, which is the quota for personal. Maybe I do. I mean, what do I do every week? I do space. I don't even know if there are operations in here. I definitely don't do Makeb dailies. Some people do war zones, so they'll be getting points from that. And other shit is like crafting. Okay, here's an operation boss, fucking Taboros Courtyard. Unless we're really working on getting those nerd points, I'm not gonna go to Taboros Courtyard.
I think the only thing that Taboros Courtyard offers at this point is a number of isotopes that people would want.
You get 2,000 points for every operation you complete, and that's repeatable.
Oh, well then we could farm the hell out of that, but...
Well, there's a limit to how much you can do that.
Wait, how many times is it repeatable?
I mean, infinity, but there's not infinity operations, especially that you can do per week.
Well, that's true.
I mean,
But I mean,
I'm
there are
sure
people
each
in our guild who
difficulty
get bored
counts.
and clear all of their lockouts on their tunes.
Yes, they will have to. They will not have to work as hard on getting points.
And you get 2,000 points per operation?
Yes.
Good lord, Fuchsia would be able to clear that in like 3 days.
I think it would be faster. In fact, maybe a lot faster to do flashpoints. Because you get 1,000 per flashpoint, and there's no lockouts with flashpoints. The only thing the system requires is that it be random.
I think that unless there is a consequence for denying random flashpoint queues, I just don't think that it's going to be quote unquote random. Like, I'll hit random, and until I hit a short flashpoint, I'm not going to queue for it because it's going to be a waste of time.
Well, all the flashpoints seem to be pretty fast to me. In fact, it doesn't even say it has to be a hard mode. So you could do this in tacticals.
Oh, well then. So then, do you just queue up for all of the randoms and you get a completion for it?
I mean, you could queue for...
Like the random tacticals, like where there's
Yeah.
literally like 3 or 5 to choose from or whatever?
Well, in 2.9 there will be 6.
That Manon, though.
Yeah. I mean, Manan is actually harder than the others. I don't think it takes any longer, but whatever. But yeah, that's... I still don't think you hit 35k just doing that. I think you have to go out of your way to hit it.
I mean, if you have to go out of your way, I can tell you that most people in this guild are not going to be seriously, like, even attempting to do Conquest. It'll be like Dom and Tenebris, like, once. And then
I don't
unless
think
there's
Tenebris
some... I think he'll do it once because there will be some weird achievement that'll give you a legacy title that he wants, and then he'll never do it again.
Here's what you get for getting 35k on a personal basis. You get scrap to trade in for any material you want. That's blue and green at the scrap peddlers in the bazaar. You get a gathering lockbox, which contains material gathering decorations for your stronghold. Like, I don't know if you saw those things I had in mind. That was like a Desh scrap pile, shit like that. Except
Yes.
hopefully it's a decent one.
You can craft, like, tables and shit with that, can't you?
I
Like,
don't
you go to
think
the
can
you go to
craft
the
them.
vendor.
I've
No,
never
I don't mean craft. I mean, like, you go to a vendor on Fleet, and they have options of things for you to buy, like tables and chairs and shit, and they cost certain amounts of those.
No, you misunderstand. This gives you, like, you go to your stronghold, you right-click it, and you get a crafting material, like Desh.
Oh.
Or
Oh, you can, like,
Durasteel.
farm it.
Yes, but it's the way it works now, or at least I haven't done it in a while, but I think the way it works now is it's on a 4-hour fucking cooldown, and last time I clicked it, I got, like, 1 Desh. So, clearly, the best one is probably whatever the highest slicing one you can get, because you don't have to have the crew skill to gather it. That's the other thing. Like, I could craft, or I could gather from the slicing thing on my sniper who doesn't have slicing. Anyway, the best one to get would be the slicing one, and just open it up for credits, and then go gather with in the traditional way.
I feel like this is going to be like GSF, where everyone gets super excited when it launches, and then after it launches, it sort of loses its luster very quickly because there's not a big interaction with the main part of the game.
Yes, I was gonna mention that. The other thing you get 19,000 credits just for hitting it, and then you get a 25,000 credit certificate, which I don't know why that wasn't rolled into the regular credit reward. It's just something you can sell to a vendor for 25k. The guild can get rewards if they rank in the top 10 on a conquest. So, like, you invade Alderaan and you at least hit number 10 out of all the guilds on the server, which includes Republic, by the way. It's both factions, which makes it even harder. Your guild gets basically the same rewards. They get 50,000 credits, the same gathering lockbox, purple scrap that you can trade in for mats, and encryptions that you can build up to 50, and then buy a framework which you can build up to 2 to 6 to turn in for a room in your flagship. So basically the reward for doing conquests is more rooms for your flagship. That's like the big reward, because you get it from the guild top 10 reward, and you also get it from these new world bosses.
I don't know. Maybe I'm just a simpleton. It just feels like they're adding a lot of, like, just very clunky systems for, oh, you need 50 frameworks, you need 1,000 dark projects, you need all these other things that are just made from other things, and it feels like, why don't you just cut out the middleman of a dark project and say, like, so you need X number of synthetic energy matrices and biometric crystal alloys, etc., to make a dark project. And then in order to make the thing above that, you need 10 dark projects. Why don't you just require more amounts of the first things? Like, why are you creating middleman materials? It feels weird. Like, I need to craft X to craft Y, and I need to craft Y to craft Z. I don't get it. It feels like I'm missing something that should be obvious.
You need a flowchart.
Yeah, why should I need a flowchart for
Exactly.
something that's made for casuals?
Well, again,
Like,
if you want to expand your ship,
Dolphy or Ufalong or someone is going to have to make some ridiculous Excel spreadsheet on the SWTOR forums or on a website.
There is one on Dolphy's website. There is a spreadsheet. It's a spreadsheet specific to unlocking rooms in the flagship. But yes, people are already doing that. Also, every room costs 5 million credits. Every room past the ones that you get for free. In addition,
on the guild ship?
In addition to all the frameworks. The frameworks that are crafted from, what are they called?
The dark projects or whatever?
No, you don't craft the frameworks from the dark projects. You craft encryptions from the projects, and then once you get 50 encryptions, then you can buy a framework.
See, what we're saying right now, all of these descriptions of different things that you have to craft, this sounds like a goddamn cult explaining how their religion is totally, like, viable. Like, they're just like, oh, well, and actually, in order to get the frameworks, you need to get the encryptions. But you can't get the encryptions until you check your thetan level with this wonderful Scientology meter. Like, this is stupid to me. This is a casual event. This is a casual event, and we're sitting here overcomplicating everything, and these are systems that need to be intuitive for people to care. And this is not intuitive.
The process by which you go about getting all this done is severely over-engineered. And that's with crafting. It is significantly easier to understand if you actually participate in the conquest system, which is what I think they're going for. Because it is both impractical and, like, difficult to understand from a what the hell do I even need standpoint to do it from crafting. My problem with it is that all this shit that we're talking about, all of it leads up to more rooms in your flagship. And that's just that's not something that excites a player like me. It's neat to think of from a prestige standpoint, and, like, I'll be real fucking impressed at world first fully expanded flagship, because it means you're a turbo nerd, and so is your entire guild, or you're just a giant guild. But,
like, I'm interested in the flagship in that it'll be cool to have our guild have a flagship. Whether or not we actually have more than the basic room is totally up to if people actually want to grind this shit, because there's no way in hell, unless Rom, you actually say, okay, but, you know, before we do PTS for the new raid that happens in 9 months, we're going to get X done, and that'll be the only way I do it. Like, there's no way I'm going to do this shit of my own volition.
No, there's I can see us slowly acquiring rooms. The actual stopgap, or the actual thing that will probably stop us, more so than getting all these stupid frameworks and encryptions and all that crap, is the credits. It costs 20,000 credits to move your flagship from one planet to another every time you do it. And it also costs 20,000 credits to move it from one drop-off point on a planet to a different one. Like, you can drop off at Kost City Spaceport or in Kost City itself. It costs 20,000 credits. If you want to summon your group from your flagship to your location on a planet, 20,000 credits. To activate the orbital buff that you get, which is, I don't think I mentioned this. This was also outlaid on the stream, and I didn't actually know about it until then. When you park your flagship over a planet, you can spend 20,000 credits. This all comes out of the guild bank, by the way, to give everybody in your guild that is on that planet a buff to their max HP, damage, healing, and all that other crap. So it basically just makes your entire guild better while they're on that planet, which is, I mean, I will like that for leveling if they allow me to park my flagship above whatever the next planet is, from 55 to 60, if that's the way it goes.
I mean, and Twitch chat is basically saying that 20k credits is peanuts, and that's true. It is peanuts,
but
like,
it adds up.
Yes, it adds up, and in addition to that, I mean, the way that they're doing the cost of these are going to affect certain types of guilds more than others. For instance, no progression guild is going to be moving their fucking guild ship during progression because of the amount of credits you need to repair. No PvP guild is going to randomly just be like, oh, I'll spend like 100,000 credits on Alderaan in one day because we decided to quick travel to a different point that needs the flagship buff. Like, things won't happen the way that they're currently setting it up for credit sinks. I get that credit sinks have to exist, and there are people in our guild who can afford a maxed out flagship right now. But it's just, I don't see there being a reason to do it other than, like, what you just said about Lobby leveling being easier. That'd be awesome. Imagine if you had basically the equivalent of the Nightmare Pilgrim buff. In addition to that, you've got double XP weekend, you've got all of your legacy buffs for XP, and you have an XP boost.
Oh, no,
That'd be awesome.
I'm not planning on using the flagship for people's Lobby leveling unless they want to put 40,000 credits in the guild bank.
Well, yeah, that's fair.
Also, it's not the 20,000 credits per move thing that bothers me. It's an additional 5 million credits to unlock rooms. That's what's gonna, like, prevent us, more so than the mats, maybe. I mean, the mats are gonna accrue very slowly. I just don't know where we're gonna get all that money if we don't want to do, like... Since the only benefit to getting the room is just another room to decorate, I don't see anybody wanting to contribute to that. Not in this guild. Like, I've already called off putting money from the money runs into the guild bank because it's not worth it. We already have enough money to just buy the baseline thing already.
Yeah, and Inception in Twitch chat brings up an interesting topic, and it's that he says he feels like the Conquest system fits a game much larger than Star Wars. And I think I agree with that, because this Star Wars in and of itself is, I would describe as a theme park MMO, and
Yes.
this system feels like it's trying to go to a different aspect of MMOs that Star Wars doesn't cater to. And I just feel like it doesn't fit. Like, this is not a sandbox MMO. This is a super instanced MMO. And it's very casual, which this could cater to, but the way that they're setting up the system does not cater to casuals. It also doesn't cater to hardcore. It caters to oddly specific rule sets.
I kind of like that they want to get you into open world to a point. Basically, I wish every conquest objective was similar to the new commander objective, in that it gets you out into the world in an area that is opposite faction territory, and there's no instances around.
That'd be awesome. It'd be awesome for our server, but I'll say this. There will be a large amount of butthurt on PvE servers about griefing that is not actually griefing because it's a PvP area, because they're not used to having open world PvP as a concept. And I just feel like Prot 5, we will like the open world PvP of this, but places like Harbinger or, maybe even RP PvE servers will not at all be a fan of getting ganked 20 times trying to get a commander.
I think that that's probably true. But that's the reason the commander is the most valuable objective. out of all of them anyway. I mean, it gives you 2,000 points. It's shitty that you can only do it once, but it also gives you those encryptions, and it has a chance to drop a frame. But one thing I didn't mention, everybody who participates in a kill of a commander gets an encryption. So that can add up if you take enough people. I think that was actually mentioned on the official stream as being by design. They want big groups to go after them, even multi-guild groups. They want to encourage that kind of behavior. What I don't like is that there's no conquest incentive for opposing faction guilds to stymie your efforts to kill the commander.
Oh, you mean like an achievement where you're, like, let's say a pubside guild on Pod 5 is trying to get the commander, and we just gank them and keep them from being able to kill the commander? Like that sort of a thing?
Yeah, I mean, I'm having trouble thinking of how they could track it. I mean, but right now, the way it stands, the only reason you would do it is for the fun of it. And I don't know if you have this, if you have the video of the stream on. Let me show you the approach to this place where the
Yeah, I've got the stream currently on right now. I'm watching you run around a corner.
Yeah, there's only one, maybe another entrance to this place. But it looks like every entrance to this particular commander is pretty bottlenecked. So it would be kind of easy for a smaller group to hold back a bigger one. The only reason I'm in here is because I have stealth on this character, and nothing has advanced stealth detection. Yeah, every entrance is a bridge. I wouldn't be surprised if this is by design and that like every commander is kind of hard to reach.
So is it a situation where you're basically RPing 300, where you just have the whole bottleneck and everyone just tries to get through, and it's sort of like a wood chipper where people are just dying on the bridge and unable to get past?
Yeah, and the thing about it is, if you want to be able to fight the players, you got to wear PvP gear, but that'll make you shittier against the commander. Like a lot shittier, in our case.
This just seems like something that was a really good idea on paper, and then we get to it, and it feels like they're not fulfilling any of the things that matter. Like someone said that it was a nod to RPers and crafters, but it's too late, and I just don't even see how it's a nod to crafters, because all of the things you can craft, it's made abundantly clear that it's inefficient to craft and it's too expensive, making it aka pointless. So you're not I mean, it doesn't seem like you're really getting advantage. Like I don't see crafters getting more rich off of doing the crafting from this. I see them getting more rich off of, oh, I have another relic to reverse engineer.
There's a reason to craft dark projects, but it's not to open up new rooms on your ship. Like, dark projects are used for a lot of other shit, and there's a reason to craft, I mean, the nod to crafters is in the decorations, more so than dark projects and things like that. Because that's the only way you can access them. The things that dark projects allow you to do is basically all conquest centric.
And then as for RPers, I think that there could be an interesting RP aspect, even though I could care less about it, for guild ships, like for guilds that have like very strict like rule sets of like their leadership. Like there are people on RP servers that literally RP walk on fleet because their job in the guild is being like a guardsman. So like for stuff like that, I feel like this could be like their wet dream, but I don't see how this is going to be more immersive when a lot of the achievements and points that you get are just, they're so convoluted, in my opinion.
I mean, I spend enough time looking at it, it doesn't feel as complex as it looks from the outside. Except for all the crafting of dark projects and the crafting of frameworks. That whole shit, I think that was made intentionally obtuse because they want to get you out into the world doing this shit.
The base aspect of conquest events is somewhat intuitive. It's just that if you want to improve conquest or like your conquest experience, it becomes more complicated.
Yes, I think. It's hard to explain.
I don't know. I think that we've almost gone so far down the rabbit hole with this that there's almost nothing else to say on Conquest at this point. Like, we just have to get on it. Like, it has to launch, and we need to see how reliable it is. Like, is this going to be like 2.8, where like too many people are trying a new system and the servers can't handle the load, and all of a sudden you get reports of like servers being unable to handle it? Like, are we going to have a rollback of a patch again? Like, I don't know, because I don't know. They never explained why in any real way 16-man group finder like completely gimped the servers. Like, we don't know if it was a poorly written code and they're trying out how to fix it, or if it was legitimately just too many people were queuing for the same thing and our servers couldn't handle it. And to me, if you have all of these people going on a planet at once, and I feel like a lot of people will, at least at first, how many issues are we going to have with server stability in these situations? Like,
I think I don't think it's going to be like it's going to be that bad. Like, do you remember replaying during Hut Cartel launch
Yes.
when there was like 10 McKebs?
Yes, I remember that.
It didn't feel that bad. In fact, it was pretty all right. I don't think having a lot of people on planets is going to be that big a deal. I mean, they're just going to move from the fleet to their ships or their planets or their strongholds or whatever. The fleets are probably going to be dead as shit. Especially
Do you
once
think they're
people
going to be
start
dead as
putting...
shit for good, or just at the start of this when everything's shiny and new?
Probably not for good. But if I can get all the terminals that I want in my stronghold, why would I ever go to the fleet? Traveling to and from a stronghold is much quicker than going to the fleet.
If I could get fleet chat on guild ship, which I'm sure there is already,
I don't know about
and
that.
on, well, if there, let's say hypothetically there is, and I can get all my mission terminals, I would never go on fleet. I would just be on the guild ship. Not because like it's cooler, just because I don't actually like riding around fleet and having 60 people just sort of pop in. Like, and that's not even my computer, because I have a very expensive computer. It's just the server, the way that like draw distance they do on characters, the limit of how many characters can be on there. I'll go to the GTN area, it'll look normal, and then all of a sudden you just see a bunch of people pop in, and like it's not an immersion breaker. It's just annoying at some point.
No, and I don't want to I don't make anybody feel bad, but I kind of want to do donuts on my mount and not get whispers. Where did you get that mount?
Yeah, I mean,
can
it
do
was
that in my stronghold and not on the fleet.
It was cool at first to do the whole. Apparently on our server, we are known as being weirdos who do. Everyone in Death and Taxes does the same, like, get on your Wings of the Architect and run around in a very specific like circle on fleet, and apparently that's a thing. But I think that one of the things that makes me not like it as much is when I get not just questions, but then dumb responses to questions. Like being asked where I got wings. It's a valid question. The wings is a pretty good mount. But when I tell them that it's from a Nightmare Op, almost always the thing they say is, "Oh, that sucks. Why can't I just get it in a cartel pack?" Things that have actually been said.
Really? I don't get
Yeah.
those responses. Like, I will always answer the question, "Where did you get that mount?" Because I'm not a dick, and it's not actually that big a deal. But I never actually got anybody complain that they can't get it in a cartel pack or whatever, whether it be
Yeah, like,
Titan 6 or the Wings or now the Rancor.
Yeah, like I think that there's this weird sort of struggle with the gamers in Star Wars where they want to have more content that's story-based or that is like game mode-based. Like, for instance, they want cool PvE mounts, cool PvP mounts, and they want them to be original. But then you have this entire section, and sometimes it's an overlapping section of players, where when they can't get that mount from the mode that they play, they all of a sudden want there to be a cartel option. And I just feel like you're asking, not only are you asking for cake and you want to eat it too, but you're basically saying to Star Wars that the only content that's acceptable is if it's also on the cartel market. And if you want people to pull away from just, we're going to put all of our resources into the cartel market, then you can't just ask for that 24/7 and then be surprised when people put more time into cartel market than they do into actual content. Like, it just feels like we, as a community of this game, exacerbate the problem when people complain, like, oh, all they do is make reskins of armor and mounts, and why can't they make real content? It's like, because people are bitching about it constantly. Like, people wanted a Rancor when it was announced for PvP. Like, there never should have been a mount, in my opinion, that they were going to give PvP. Not because I care about PvP, because I don't, but there shouldn't have been a Dathomir Rancor. It should not have been a thing. It should have been something to strive for. And instead, it was like, you can strive for the purple Rancor or buy 6 Hypercrates.
I'm less sensitive to that. The PvP mount and now the Grodthok mount from Dread Council, they feel unique enough to me that I can, like, in my head, look down upon other Rancors as inferior.
Yeah,
Just
I
for
can
not
too.
being-
I can
just like, and this is not. I'm not saying as an elitist thing. I'm saying that, look, these mounts were earned. That mount wasn't. That kind of thing. It was the same thing in WoW. There were proto drakes and shit in Wrath of the Lich King, and depending on what color you had, you could tell which one was earned, which one was bought, what you had to do to get which color, basically. Although
Yeah.
there wasn't a cash shop in that game at the time.
And then there's another thing that's being brought up in Twitch chat asking about rewards for PvP for Season 2.
We'll talk about that.
And, yeah, I'd like to talk about that too.
Let's see. What do we have? Let's wrap up discussion on Conquest real quick. The problem, as I see it, with Conquests, one, the hamster wheel of Conquests is only appealing if you like the idea of having a giant decorated ship, because that is the primary benefit to doing Conquests. So if you don't care about that, and if you don't care about that, then you don't really have much reason to do Conquests, which is why I think you're probably right, and Death and Taxes probably will not participate to any real capacity. I mean, we want a ship, but I only want a ship as far as practical concerns go. Like, I want that planetary buff, and that's basically it.
What I want for guild ships, I don't know if this is a thing, but if it's not, it needs to. I want there to be not fucking portraits that are nightmare trophies. I want actual, like, physical in terms of the game, trophies for killing bosses. Like, if we kill, we get Kind Run, I want there to be a cool statue, something, in the guild ship, because the guild earned that, not just
Yes.
a player getting a trophy. And that could be interesting for a guild ship, because then we would have a reason for doing some of these things, because it's like, oh, well, we need a room for TFB tier, we need a room for S&B tier, etc., etc., and you would have people caring about it, and then the prestige factor of a guild ship would become even more so, because you'll have people that are like, you know, I don't think it's going to be this serious, but let's say someone apps to a guild, and one of the, like, main things is like, I want to see your guild ship. Like, do you have these achievements? Like, do you have these trophies in your guild ship? Like, that would be, like, really immersive level, but it'd be more interesting than just flashing an achievement in general chat.
Yes, and there are trophies that drop off of bosses, both in flashpoints and raids. I don't think that they're difficulty dependent, which is not good. The personal trophies that you just get for having the achievements, the portraits, those are okay. I'm not really thrilled with them. I'm gonna put them up on my wall, obviously, but I'm not gonna, like, get real excited. They're just up there to take up space. I want, like, the Dreadmasters were created when Bestia discovered studied the Phobos devices, right? I want, when we kill Dreadmasters in Nightmare, I want a Phobos device to drop whatever the hell it looks like.
Yeah, that would be interesting.
Or a Dread
because
Holocron or something.
You're making a sort
I
of
think Dread
oblique.
Holocron is in there. But yes.
You're like making a sort of oblique nod to the greater storyline, and it's not just like, you know, grinding out an op. It's like, hey, this has some sort of connection to this op. Another issue that I have with strongholds in general is that certain trophies have nothing to do with where you get them from. Like, I've seen trophies, or like even like decorations in strongholds that you get in TFB that look like they're from an asset from something on, like, Drum and Koss. Or there was something about I think it was either S&V or it was Dread Fortress, where the trophy you got was something that was on Korriban, and it was just that doesn't.
Oh, I think I know what you mean. Hang on.
Yeah.
Oh, that's different. But no, I know what you mean. There are some trophies that are appropriate. Like, I think the KP trophy is, the giant golden statue of Karaga on the promenade. I think it's that.
Yes. See, those
some of
trophies would
them
be
aren't,
awesome. So those trophies would be awesome to have. Like, imagine if you could have, like, of course we would want to decorate our guild ship with a bunch of Kefis statues, like Kefis is love, Kefis is life. But it would be great to have interesting, like, not just little trinkets. Trinkets do not interest me. I'm not doing Nightmare to get friggin' like wall trinkets. I don't need tapestries in a guild ship. This is not a castle.
But I mean, those walls will be decorated with those trophies.
Obviously. I'm just saying I wish that there were better trophies. Like, I think we can all agree that the trophies are not very compelling.
They're going to be decorated with those trophies for lack of anything better to put on them.
Yeah.
From what I can tell, also, and this is a minor point, this is sort of a side issue, the max number of hooks in a guild ship is 500. And the guild ship is truly, truly massive. Which means I think you're going to end up with a lot of empty space. Like, I think the guild ship is bigger than any personal stronghold, even Tatooine. Like, by a lot.
I think that they have to overdo the amount of space you have to the point where it's almost going to be like this big cavernous hall of nothing in it, because they need room for when they update. Like, they need more than like a small area, so that when they come out with the next tier and they have way more things, or when they do an expansion where it's like, we're going to do a big update to guild ships, they need to have rooms to fit things in, so that you don't have people deciding, ooh, do I need to keep things in this room, or do I need to scrap this room and start over for all the new stuff?
Hooks do go up when you get more rooms, but like, I'm pretty sure the maximum for a ship is 500. Like, you don't start with 500, I don't think. I could be wrong about that, but don't think I am. I think I read somewhere. Hang on, let me check my my sources here.
Your sources?
No, this doesn't have an entry on hooks. Never mind.
The Death and Taxes News Network?
No.
SWTOR Drudge Report? Is that what we're going with?
No. Okay, going back to something we said earlier, do you think the dev team has like a weird desire with respect to wanting players to go to leveling planets at max level? Because they've done this before. They did this with the Seeker Droid and the macro binoculars.
I can't tell if their weird fixation is based on wanting to milk the shit out of the content, or if it's based on a fixation to be like, BioWare put in hundreds of millions of dollars into this game, and we're really proud of the first 50 levels. Go back to Alderaan. Like, I can't tell which one's which, but it feels like they definitely want you to care about planets that you did 2 years ago on, like, 6 different characters. Like, I don't have the whole Altaholic obsession that some people in this guild and some people in this game have, where they have 1855. I have literally 355s. I have more than those in characters, but I'm terrible at leveling. It will take me exponentially longer to level 1 toon than it does for, say, Deeps to level 3. But the problem with that is, I don't even think those people have any interest in going to these older planets, because they've done it so many times. If I am burnt out on Alderaan, and I am burnt out on even planets I like, for instance, I'm a big fan of Nar Shaddaa. I have no interest in doing conquests on Nar Shaddaa. It's just not a thing for me. And if I'm burnt out on that, I can only imagine how burnt out some people are when they have, like, an advanced class of everything, 5. Like, I just don't see it happening. I don't see them making us care without giving us completely new content. Like, if you want us to go back to Alderaan, give me New Game Plus for my 55. Make everything everything at level cap, make everything difficult, and let me re-go through my class stories.
Well, they did that, let's be fair. They did that with macro binoculars and Seeker Droid. The problem is, by the very nature of those quest chains, you only ever wanted to do them once, especially because they both end in heroic 4s that nobody can find a group for.
Yeah, because if you didn't do Seeker Droid at launch of Seeker Droid content, good luck getting 4 people that already don't have it on another character or
Yeah.
are interested in doing it.
And
Because to be honest with you,
I really enjoyed those quest lines, and I really enjoyed the puzzle solving. It was a lot of fun the first time. But when I already knew everything afterwards, well, no, it's not even when I wanted to. When I was done with it, I didn't want to help anybody else do it because it took a long time.
I've helped a few people do the Seeker Droid final mission, the uprooting the last seat, or whatever it is on pub side.
Yeah.
And to be honest with you, because bad people make content harder than it actually is, I've actually done that Heroic 4 with more wipes than some Nightmare bosses because people can't understand basic ideas, and it
That's not surprising.
like it's painful. Like there's this one room where you have to keep putting little energy nodes into turrets and into energy shields so that basically zombies don't get into the room. Yeah. And if you don't do it properly, it can take like 20 minutes just to get everything like all ready. And you have a bigger problem of people not knowing how obvious things work, which is not their fault. I mean, not everybody is going to be good at this game, but it makes the content hard enough to where you almost don't want to do it even when you're trying to help because there's a chance of somebody being like that in your group.
No. And you were doing the easier one. I think the end of the macro binocular chain is much harder as far as puzzle solving goes. And
You're talking about the Shroud one?
And coordination, yeah. In that
the
final,
Shroud one's
final
harder.
factory on Nar Shaddaa, I did that with Deeps and Turtle and one other person who I can't remember. It could be somebody who's still in guild, but it may not be. Imagine coordinating Turtle in that factory, because that was fucking difficult, and he was probably drunk.
Probably,
And
more like
Turtle's-
definitely drunk.
Turtle's good at this game. I cannot imagine pugging that, and that's why nobody does it, because there's no real benefit to it for them to do it.
Although, the one thing I'll say about the Secret Droid mission ending and the Macro Binocular mission droid ending for the Heroic 4, that does prove that as a concept, they could make something like Nightmare Flashpoints interesting. That does
Yes.
prove that. And it's sort of like, instead of me taking it as this wonderful morsel of content of, oh, this is awesome, I loved when I did this, for me, it's almost like a sad reminder of, this is what they could be doing, and instead I'm getting Korriban and Tython.
That stuff wasn't hard because of the enemies, though. It was hard because of the coordination, really. The thing that makes me cry about those missions, and we're off on a big-time tangent right now, is how unappreciated they really are. Because almost nobody has done them, and if the people who have done them, most of them have only done it once. And this is an MMO where shit's designed to be repeated.
If you could get good people together to do that Seeker Droid and the Macro Binocular mission, like endings, like it'd be awesome. Honestly, it would be nice if you could actually queue up for just the Heroic 4, and not do the other things, just the Heroic 4, because they're fun. They are interesting. It's just that they're not fun with bad people, which is kind of like everything in this game.
Anyway, back to what prompted this discussion of going out to old planets and all that other stuff. Conquest is worse, though, because almost none of the activity is anything new. The only new thing is the commander. In fact, most of the activity is not even level appropriate for max level people, who is going to be, I would say, the majority of people participating in Conquest are going to be max level.
So it's going to be level 55s doing level, 24 heroics?
Yeah, and Makeb heroics in Section X and shit like that. Makeb is the closest to level appropriate. I guess there's stuff on Oricon, so you could count that. And you can count CZ-198 if that ever appears in the objectives. But, killing Republic-aligned characters on Alderaan or Makeb or whatever... Yeah, defeat House Organa guard droids and turrets on Alderaan. unless they're 55, like the actual guards that are supposed to protect the actual settlements, that doesn't seem like a good use of a 55's time. And even if they are, it's not a good use of a 55's time.
I think that one good thing they could do for Conquest, I don't know if they are, and hopefully they do at some point, is there's a meta in the PvP of this game where you go onto planets and you try and take over the other faction's base. And I hope to Lord that there is some achievement for guilds that do that, because that would be fun, where you, like, not necessarily spawn camping people as they, like, revive, but like just being able to take over a base where you're let's say you're on Imp side and you just see a bunch of level 55 pubs, like, just loaded up on where you spawn into, and everything else is dead. Like, that would be interesting to me. That, to me, would actually be a conquest.
Yeah. I mean, I'm kind of for and kind of against the world PvP part, and it's why I like the Commander so much, aside from it being the only new thing. The reason I kind of don't like it is that it's going to force me to get a PvP set, and I just don't want to.
Rom, you could just be like me, have PvE gear, and hope to God Cat can heal you through the damage.
I mean, you'll take catastrophic damage from...
I do.
Especially, I mean, I will take even more catastrophic damage since I don't have any cooldowns.
We were doing Tatooine, we were doing Rakghoul, and there were like something like 12 pubs in the Rakghoul tunnels, and we had like 5 people, and we killed most of them every time, and when we did die, it was usually our fault, but like, Cac was like just like spamming things, just like basically tunnel healing, because like I'm in PvE gear and I'm just taking like half of my life every other GCD.
No. I mean, I'm going to have to get PvP gear. That's just not going to be a thing. And can't be focus healing everybody, so... It's just gonna... That's just the way it's gonna be. If we decide to participate.
Could they have done a PvP bolster in these PvP areas?
That would really make people angry, I think.
Angry on our type of a server or any server? Because I feel like PvE servers that would almost make things even.
I think the PvP players would get mad. Because now their PvP gear is less worth it out in the world, where it's like the most worth it.
Yeah, PvP servers, it's completely different than PvE, because nobody wears PvP gear on a PvE server unless they're queuing. And I see a bunch of people with just Brutalizer gear on random planets, and it's just so weird for me. I know that is how it works in a PvP server, but I don't think people realize just how different a PvE server plays. Like, it's just, like, half of the things that happen in this game on a PvP server that are fun would be literally considered griefing and breaking terms of service on a PvE server. And, like, it happened to me. Like, I'll give you a great example. Well, no, I'll give you a great example of how, like, hurt PvE can be, and this has to do with me. So, like, we were trying to do a 10-stack Dreadtooth kill, and on a PvE server, there is no open world PvP unless you request to duel, or it's a PvP area like the Gree event, right? So we're trying to pull this boss, we're getting ready, and then people from an Imp guild start running through, and like, it's not like they're running through and they're killing people that are flagged for PvP and those people are stupid. It's they're pulling the boss and running it into us so that we get the debuff and we die because we're not ready to pull the boss. And, like, on a PvP server, that's hilarious and it's fun, and you get good open world PvP from doing things like that. On a PvE server, you just wasted, like, 15 people's nights, and they're pissed, and they're reporting you. And it's just such a weird dichotomy that one server, it could be completely acceptable in the meta, and on another server, you're literally being the biggest asshole in this game.
It's... I don't want to, like, psychoanalyze people over the internet, especially, like, a giant group of people. But to me, if you roll on a PvE server, I think you have this expectation that you will never be griefed. And that's just not a thing. There's always...
On a PvE server?
Yeah.
Yeah, that is the expectation. Like, I can tell you, like, I was super butthurt when it happened. And, like, I could care less when it happens on Pot 5, but, like, I was legitimately, like, really mad about it. And it's hilarious because, literally, if I would have logged on to Pot 5, I would have been laughing. It's weird. It's, like, a weird dynamic that happens in that server. I don't know if other people on PvE servers feel similar or if they're fine with it too, but like we had I think like 16 people in the group we were in, and like some of them literally logged out of the game. They were so mad. Like that's how butthurt people got.
I don't know. My reaction, and I've played on a PvP server in WoW as well. My reaction to getting PvP'd or griefed or whatever is to like, if I can fight them evenly, I will. If I can't, I will avoid them. And in this game, avoiding them is changing instances. Or, I mean, if you can't avoid them, I'll just come back later. I don't understand getting upset about it.
Yeah.
I mean, it is annoying in the moment, and, like, if I lose the fight and I think it could have gone the other way, I'll get mad at myself. But, I don't know. I don't get that mentality.
I feel like it's a mentality born from being on a PvE server. Like, anyone who's been on a PvP server won't understand it. But, like, there are so many people who only do PvE, they hate PvP, and they're not a big fan of open world PvP, where it literally makes them want to not play the game until it's done. So I feel like it's just two different categories of people playing the same game, and they're just cordoned off from one another.
Anyway, I've got a prediction for 2.9. At least for players like me. I can't speak for everybody. We're going to log in. I'm going to spend 3 hours crafting, setting decorations in my stronghold. I'm going to do the farm raid. I'll buy the guild ship. And then I'll log out. The other thing is to put decorations on the guild stronghold or the guild ship. Every decoration you want to donate to the guild costs you money, in addition to the decoration you're donating, which seems kind of outrageous to me. Like, you should just be able to donate it and then just not have the option of getting it back. But that's what I think is going to happen, for me anyway, because unless people get a bug up their ass about really wanting to do conquests, which I don't think they will, I'm probably not going to spend a whole lot of time on 2.9's launch.
I mean, I think that some people in our guild will care, and I will join up with them and do achievements and shit for them. Like, I know Jen's going to probably... Dom will, Jen will, and God, if Tahiri ever decides to start playing Star Wars again, I'm sure he would be all about this shit. But I think most of us that would do it would be doing it just to be like, okay, I'll group up with you for an hour when I have nothing else to do. Other than that, like, there's no real chance that this is going to be taken seriously. And not because we're elitist, just because there's not an incentive that makes sense for this event yet that actually matters to us. Like, and by us, I don't mean Death and Taxes. I mean, like, people that play this game for a specific reason. Like, this is a very sandbox thing for a, like, theme park MMO. It doesn't match up in my eyes.
Yeah. And more to that point, or more to the point of something that you said earlier, Stronghold seems to be suffering from a more minor version of the same thing that befell Starfighter. Starfighter is, at least from my estimation, not in a healthy place, and it's because it is so divorced from the rest of the game. Strongholds is too, to a lesser extent, but all the rewards that you get from Strongholds, with the exception of the buff you can get from your capital ship on one planet only, all those rewards are Stronghold-centric.
I mean, I think that one of the biggest issues with GSF and, again, to a smaller degree, Conquests and Strongholds is that they're more mini-games and completely different systems that are being put into this game as if it's, like, meshing. And, like, for Star Wars or the devs or whoever to sort of position this as something that's going to, like, change the game and how it's going to make it better, it's like, I don't know why they don't just make it as and market it as a mini game. Like, there are certain games that have cool mini games. Like, I remember, was it Is it Street Fighter or Mortal Kombat where you have those stupid little mini game competitions, like where you
It's
try and
Mortal
break
Kombat.
the car?
Actually,
or whatever?
it's
Yeah.
both of them, actually. Like,
Yeah, like,
Mortal
okay,
Kombat has
like
Test Your
they're-
Might, and Street Fighter is breaking the car and stuff like that, yeah.
Yeah, and then you have like Final Fantasy that has Chocobo Racing. Like there are certain mini games that you could market it like that, and people would care. Like if you had Pazak or Sabak, people would do that.
They
I just
never
don't know why people are
called-
marketing this like an actual addition to the main game when it's just a completely different system.
Do you think that they would say that they marketed Starfighter as an addition to the main game? Because, I mean, Starfighter is a mini game. I think the problem with Starfighter is not its marketing, it's, again, how divorced it is from the rest of the game.
Yeah, and Listen Louder 22 said that they feel like SWTOR is turning into an arcade. They have the main game you can play, but then when you're hanging out, you can play other games. I think that that's kind of what they're doing. It's just that they're sort of not doing it in the same way. Like GSF, the way that they do that, where you queue up and it's obviously a completely different system, I'm almost fine with that because they're not trying to shoehorn it into the main game. They are making an attempt to shoehorn conquests and strongholds into the main game. It's just that it's done in a really mediocre way.
I think that Strongholds will be more successful in a participation sense than GSF is. And I think it's partially because it is more tied into the main game. I actually think that lots of the participation issues in GSF would go away if there were main game reasons to play it. The only thing that you can get from GSF that affects the main game is credits. And that's it. I mean, you get fleet comms, which will help you in strongholds, but that's not the main game. Like, I think participation shoots up if you get cosmetic items from an activity. We know this is true because remember what happened when Season 1 rewards were announced for ranked PvP? Participation skyrocketed.
Yep, and yet they used the Season 1 rewards as a reason to make the Season 2 rewards the way that they were in a different direction, which does not make
Yes.
sense to me. Yeah. Like, I find it weird because it's like they know that if they do cosmetic things as rewards, that people will do them, yet they have made it a sort of message to the community that if it's something that is a cosmetic thing that they can't really profit off of, there's not a reason for them to make it. And it's just a weird dichotomy to have as a development team.
Yeah, we can move on to the Season 2 rewards now. I think we've beaten to death strongholds and conquests for now. This week the Season 2 rewards were announced. You've got basically 2 stronghold trophies and a hat for Tier 1. The stronghold trophies that you hang on the wall, you get no matter what rank you get a different color depending on what tier you are. The 3rd tier gets bronze, then silver, then gold. They are pretty much visually identical to the the PvE trophies. I don't know that anybody has any on the test server. I would guess not, since the date hasn't been reached for rewards to go out. I don't think that's how it works. So, but I think they're probably the same size, which means that the bronze one is tiny and the silver and gold are roughly the same size as each other, or I think they are exactly the same size. The only thing that makes the PvP wall trophy visually distinct is the fact that it has a stylized 2 on it, which I guess symbolizes what season it was. I don't know. Just like the PvE trophies, I can't imagine anybody getting really excited about that. I'm sure people who get a gold trophy will put it up, but if I get like a bronze or a silver trophy in ranked PvP, I don't think I would ever display that.
I think that the barge is cool. It's just I don't know if it's cool enough to justify doing ranked PvP for an entire season to get it. I think that the hat is stupid. Like I've said this before in Mumble, but I'll just say it now so other people can hear it. I think that the hat not only is it something that Baron Deathmark does, or whatever the fuck, doesn't actually wear in game, but beyond that, it looks too similar to the Red Blade helmet mixed with Lando Calrissian's helmet in Jabba's palace, to the point where it doesn't look. So even when they say, "Oh, it's an original thing," it's something that's not in the game anywhere else. Yeah, but it's very derivative of other things. And it's not that derivative is a bad thing. There are certain things in this game that are extremely derivative. For instance, the smuggler ship for the smuggler class story is basically a derivative thing of the Millennium Falcon. But that's cool because the Millennium Falcon is cool. This hat is not cool. This hat does not go with other outfits. This hat would be cool if you had an entire set so that you could wear it and it would look good. But if you look on the dev post of the Season 2 rewards, there's a picture of Cand, who's a pretty good PvPer, but it's not actually his character, according to people that know him. And it's basically the helmet, and then it's the Mandalore the Ultimate outfit, and it looks hideous. And if that's the outfit that BioWare chose to put together, that's as close as they could get to a good outfit for this? Like, I just don't see how it's good.
I can't imagine a cloth-looking outfit that goes well with that helmet. You have to wear something that looks like metal. That's my main problem with that hat. I mean, I think it just looks stupid. And I like Baron Deathmark in Huttball. I like him less in arenas. And it feels to me like his Huttball voice actor might be different from his arena voice actor. I can't confirm or deny that. I know he's supposed to be the same guy as Andronikos Ravel, but he sounds way different in his delivery in Huttball, the original, and everything he's done since then.
Well, this is like down the rabbit hole of like little things in this game, but isn't the voice actor for the Baron, isn't he like fucking Vegeta in Dragon Ball Z? Like, doesn't he work for Funimation?
I have no idea. I wouldn't be able to tell you either way.
I don't know, these PvP rewards, and the justification they made when people were complaining on forums was basically that they got feedback from Season 1 that people didn't like reskins.
That's true.
So they wanted to give you something. They wanted to give you something original, but they didn't want to do an entire armor set because it wouldn't be something that the majority of the game could play. AKA, we can't incentivize it for the entire game. AKA, we can't make money off of it. But the problem for me on that whole part is that people were fine with the Season 1 rewards when the Rancor was original. When it was the only mount, people were fucking psyched for that. Like, the amount of people on Harbinger, which I used to be on, that didn't do even regular PvP, that all of a sudden were like, well, it's time to start grinding ranked, like, that was actually a thing. People cared about it. Like, did people care about the armor sets? Not really. I mean, it basically was just Dreadforged Abroan armor with light-up shit on it, but people really wanted the Rancor. And the people that try and act like they didn't want the Rancor because now there's so many different versions, they sort of forget that the Rancor was actually, at one point, going to be a status symbol for PvP. And then they made the requirement to get the Rancor lower than it should have been. But if they did a mount, even if it was a reskin for PvP, people would be considerably happier about that than what they did here. If people did a reskin of, I don't know, something old and obscure. Like, let's say it was like you know when you log in and you create a new character, the outfits that the classes wear, if you could have those outfits as a PvP reward, people would know, oh, I saw that
those
from
outfits
this.
are already in the cartel market.
I didn't know if they were fully, but
yeah,
like,
they are.
There are things that they could do that would be better than a goddamn helmet that no one cares about.
I think that let me play Tenebrous advocate here. He thinks that the Rancor was stupid. I think that's what he said.
I think I remember him saying that nobody liked the Season 2 1 rewards,
that's
the ones that were good.
Okay, I can't play Tenebrous advocate because that's just not true. People were very excited about the ranked rewards. I think his position was that people who really enjoyed PvP before they knew what the rewards were did not care about the Rancor, and that they wanted something that they could use in PvP. Do you recall if he agreed that Kick the Huttball, something like that, would have been more acceptable? I think that's what he said.
Yeah, well, he was saying that he thinks that if PvP rewards had something you could use in a PvP match, that PvP players would care about it more. My whole thought on that is, I don't know what it would be, because here's the issue I have. If it's for the best players, you're already making the best players better in a way that other people don't have access to it. Like, at least in raids...
I don't think he would be so crazy as to suggest some kind of thing that would make your character better.
Yeah, so like I don't know if you can do that, but also here's the other issue. Why would PvPers care more about an emote or an RP thing in a PvP match? Like, what are they going to do? Like, the only thing I can see is if they wanted to go old school first person shooter and teabag you when they kill you. That's the only thing I can think of.
There's trash talking things that don't necessarily have to be teabagging, like
what, like Super Smash Bros, where like the characters do their little taunt thing or whatever, like that. Yeah. That'd be kind of cool, I guess. But would it be class specific? Or do you get to choose from a different set? I don't think
that they would bother with the voice. I don't think they would bother the voice actors. I think it would be like some kind of action that the character does. Like, I don't know. You cover sports. People make choke actions in sports all the time.
Like touchdown dances, stuff like that.
Shit like that.
Yeah, I mean that'd be kind of cool. Like you're doing hut ball, you score the hut ball, and then you do your little slash like hut ball emote, and
that
you're basically doing like. Oh, that does happen. Oh,
if you score the hut ball, your character starts dancing.
Oh, well, is it a good dance, or is it just kind of whatever?
I mean...
I
think it's just slash dance, but I don't know.
I want to be honest with you. If I scored the hut ball, I would want to start twerking up against the wall if I was going to do that. That's what I would hope for. But, I mean, I don't take PvP seriously enough, so that's just how I would think about it. I think your tune should have an emote on the cartel market with a pull pants down and take a poop on someone.
I was trying to suggest things that they would actually do, but yes, that would also be good.
That would be hilarious. They would never do it, but the amount of like, you know, those body type 4 people that are only wearing like Jory Daragon's like thong, like those people, those emotes would be priceless.
Oh yeah, no, especially those people and people who put together great clown suits, people who ever wear the Hallowed Gothic helm at all ever. Anything that can make them look silly, I'm all for. But I don't know. I think Season 1 had much better rewards across the board. I think more people cared about that Rancor than care about the stupid hat. I think the reason is, well, not the only reason, but I think the biggest reason is the hat doesn't go with everything, so you would not want to fucking wear it most of the time. You'd have to design a whole set around it.
Also, I wonder, because I've heard a few people say this. They've said, and this is going down the fucking like grassy knoll conspiracy theory route, and I don't know if I want to take it at face value or even with huge grains of salt. But I've heard, I think it was Tenebris and at least one other person say that he thinks that the rewards suck because you can't give good rewards when almost everyone who has the highest rating is Q-syncing and exploiting the rating system. And I just wonder if the devs are aware, I know that they're aware of Q-syncing, and I know that they're aware of people throwing matches for other people, but I wonder if they had that in consideration when considering, like, when bringing into context what the rewards were going to be.
I don't think that they consider cheaters when they're designing the rewards. There's this one guy famous on Pot 5 that Tenebris can't shut up about, which I understand.
AFK?
Yeah. That guy who just, he Q-syncs on a multi-box, on a Republic character and an Imperial character. I don't remember which one he's actually trying to rank up. But if he ever gets himself, he quits on one character and builds up the other guy.
Yeah, and there are people, like, if I remember correctly, I think his name's Double Bubble. He's got one of the highest ratings in PvP, and he admitted on a podcast that he Q-syncs, and BioWare has already said that they're not really about Q-syncing. There are people that straight up admit in general chat that they go into PvP and slash stuck in arenas on the regular, and they get reported hundreds of times and nothing happens. And yes, there have been conversations where devs are saying that they're in the process of going through the terms of service and all this other stuff, But if it takes the amount of time to where the season ends before you actually get these people banned or you give them some sort of consequence, then you're basically ruining the ability to get the season 2 rewards, even if you wanted them, on the characters you rank on or you try to do ranked on.
I would say that the response time being so slow is definitely not ideal. I don't know why it's so slow, but yeah, the season's going to be over before they do anything about that guy I just mentioned. I mean, that's almost guaranteed. It's only got a little over a week left before 2.9, and that's when the season's over. And
Yeah,
as far as I know, he's still queuing.
It's almost like they've just sort of resigned to the fact that Season 2 is going to be a letdown, and then maybe they just put more effort into Season 3, because if they're not going to ban the people that are clearly, like, deeply messing up other people's ability to play the game, I don't see the point. Like, maybe there is a good reason that the PvP rewards suck, because you have, like, 3 people on all of their different tunes with, like, 2,000 rating, and they're clearly Q-syncing, and you can watch them do it, and you can watch them have other characters stuck. And hundreds of people, or at least hundreds of times, people have been reported, and it's gotten to the point where on Pot 5, the way that players are actually competing to negatively impact AFK's ability to multi-box and Q-sync is that anytime they are in a team with AFK, they throw the game in order to combat the fact that AFK is throwing the game on other characters.
Yeah.
Like, that's the meta of ranked PvP on Pot 5 right now, and that's a problem, because your only way to combat the fact that he's doing this is to throw games yourself. So not only is he fucking up ranked P for everyone else, but you're actually, not you, but you, generally speaking, are then adding to that issue because you have no other way of doing it outside of no longer doing ranked.
I think a design decision has led to all this. And the design decision is allowing solo queue.
Well, was solo queue a design decision based on low population doing PvP, or was it something they actually wanted?
I mean, I'm not on the team or anything. I don't work at BioWare, so I would not be able to tell you. But I think solo queue is like the one thing that is allowing all this to happen. You get rid of solo queue and nobody would be on a team with AFK.
Do you think that if cross-server was a thing for ranked PvP, or even just PvP in general, do you think that solo queue would be necessary?
No.
Do you think they would get rid of solo queue if it was cross-server?
I think if the queuing population were healthy enough to support it, that they should absolutely get rid of solo queue. And, okay, take that with a grain of salt. I do not play ranked. But as an outsider, and an outsider who hears a lot of feedback from people who do, it seems to me that solo queue is causing a lot of harm. And the main benefit is to increase the number of people in the queue at all, so that people actually get games played, even if they suck. Solo queue is responsible for YOLO Inquisitor. YOLO Inquisitor is a level 55 Inquisitor who queues ranked.
Didn't they say that they can't keep people from doing that because they want people to be able to make the choice to play how they want? Like they won't put in a restriction to say you need an advanced class because they don't want to limit your options. Like, didn't they actually say that at one point?
I don't remember any official response being given about people not picking an advanced class and then queuing for ranked.
It wasn't an official response like on Dev Tracker. It was a response in that Muska was asked the question in a Twitch stream, and he answered it basically saying that.
I don't.
It was either Muska or Tate. It was one of the two people.
If it was anybody on the community team, I would not be surprised if maybe they didn't grasp what was being asked. Because, I mean, you know how the streams go. There's, like, dozens of questions being asked of them at a time, and they're, like, giving answers off the top of their heads. I would bet you that, like, Alex Modney or whoever else is responsible for ranked PvP, I bet you they don't want basic classes queuing. Just as a rule.
I have another sort of thought. So it's it's assumed that the teams for different aspects of this game are sort of a skeleton crew. It's at least assumed. I could be wrong, but I'm assuming there's not a ton of people working on PvP. There's not a ton of people working on operations.
I mean,
it's like
I have no way of knowing.
Yeah, but that's the assumption in the community, at least. I don't know if that's accurate. But I just wonder, did the cartel market team that works on the aesthetic shit, the cosmetic shit, did they help with PvP rewards? Because I feel like the cartel team could actually come up with some pretty cool cosmetic rewards for PvP, and I just feel like if they're not utilizing that talent, they should be.
I would be very surprised if they have two separate art departments, one for cartel market and one for everything else. I just think that they focus more of their effort on the projects for the cartel market. As far as items go, anyway. It seems to me that having two separate art departments would be wasteful and inefficient. So I don't think that that's the case.
Okay, so basically these rewards just suck in general, then.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think they're very good.
I think the only thing good about the rewards is that the title you get for being one of the top 3 of your class, period, is a pretty cool title. I like all Galaxy insert your class name here. I think that's cool. I like that.
It's decent.
It is a rare title.
Oh, yeah.
It's a very rare title, and I don't think that they'll do the exact same thing. And it's better than S1 All-Star. If I was able to get, well, I'm a bad, so this isn't happening, but if I could have all Galaxy Marauder on my Marauder, I'd be rocking that through many tiers of PvE content, but it's just not a thing. There will be people who will care about that, and that's cool, but I don't think a title is enough to get people to do ranked.
No, not a title alone. That's why you need decent rewards, and that's why Season 1 participation exploded. In the actual reveal of the rewards that they wrote, they did say that they're going to monitor participation rates post-reveal to see if these kind of things appeal to people. I bet you they're going to find that they don't. And so they shouldn't do them again. The other reason why they're going to find that is that they released the rewards way too late into the cycle. Giving people...
Well, that's classic BioWare not actually letting people know.
Yeah.
Well, it's classic BioWare. They're just we're not going to tell you anything, and then we'll tell you all of the things at the very end when it's almost too late for you to contextualize it.
Yes.
That's the biggest problem with BioWare as, an entity with SWTOR. We're not going to tell you about the non-GSH expansion until we get to the point where it's literally, in the process of being done. We're not going to tell you where you're going. We're not going to tell you how many levels you're getting. We're not going to tell you if there's an op. They're not telling us anything, and that's something they do for everything in this game.
I want to say that we had at least... We had at least 6 to 8 months of heads up on Hut Cartel. We knew the name of the expansion. We knew how many levels we were getting. I don't know if we knew the planet. We were hazy on the features, I think. But we knew that we were getting a level expansion, and we knew what it was called, and we knew generally what the lore was. Huts. We don't know shit about what's coming in 3.0.
Yep. And the other problem with not knowing
what...
Yeah, well, the other problem with the not, knowing anything about 3.0, we also don't know to what extent 3.0 is on the calendar. 2.10 originally, in my opinion, was not a thing. I was assuming it'd be 2.9 and then 3.0.
Yeah,
so 2.10 is now a thing. Could 2.11 be a thing? Could 2.12 be a thing? They say, we're still going to release it this year. But they've also said things like that and then delayed things. I don't think it would be smart. It would be fucking cancer for this game, but I would not be surprised if they were due to us wanting to make shit cooler, we're not going to release this in calendar year 2014, but it'll be available in March. It's just like, how many goddamn patches do we need? Like, just give us 3.0. I don't care.
I would certainly hope that they don't do that, and nobody wants them to do that. But I don't know how likely it is. I don't have any real insight into that.
Yeah, in Twitch chat right now, they're talking about people are mum on 3.0. For all they know, it's coming out next summer. 3.0 will likely be delayed. And the reason that these thoughts are here is because when you don't communicate, that already gives you room to speculate. And then the other problem is, because this game has a history of having to delay patches, having to roll back patches, having things break other aspects of the game, because of that, your speculation will inherently be negative on average. Because they're not giving you anything.
I disagree with the assessment that the history is that the patches have been delayed. The only thing that I remember ever being delayed is Strongholds.
Well, not necessarily the patch being delayed, but certain aspects of the patch being pushed back to other patches, is what I mean.
So Strongholds.
No, because there have been PvP things that were supposed to happen way earlier in the game, like towards launch, where they just pulled it 2 days before, or when they say like back when they did. Remember when they did customization, where you had like dyes and you had the appearance tab, all that crap. They said there would be a lot of PvP things in that patch, and then all of a sudden they didn't exist in that patch. And then it was, we're going to do it in a later patch. Like, stuff like that is something that a lot of players are very aware of. And even though there are awesome things that come out in this game, and there is good content being done at a decent pace, people remember the very overarching negatives. Like, 2.8 will be a thing in the meta of a very dark moment in this game's history, much like 1.2 and 1.4. 1.2 is where all of the original subs from when they first bought the game decided to say, fuck this game. And 1.4 is where a lot of raiders left because of EC. Or not 1.4, maybe 1.6.
Maybe I feel the way I do because I don't PvP with any regularity. Because it seems like a lot of the projects that got delayed were PvP-centric. Okay. I think that wraps up our discussion on the Season 2 rewards and any tangents related to that. I've got one more thing on the ledger here. And it's a planned debate about parsing and whether or not it lets you improve as a player. My position is that it doesn't. And
my position is obviously that it does.
Yeah. I should actually make this more nuanced. I don't think that it's necessary.
I think
Go ahead.
I think that people should have a little context if they don't. So, for instance, to everyone listening, for context of this, Rom is someone who does Nightmare content at a progression pace and hates parsing. He doesn't think there's a point. He doesn't, like, I don't think I've ever seen him on his ship parsing ever, and when he did, it was a joke on stream, and that's about it. Whereas myself and a number of other people in Death and Taxes and other guilds will spend quite literally hours on a parsing dummy trying to squeeze out 10 DPS. And so there's context for that. Like, Rom, it's not just that he doesn't think it's helpful. He never does it. He thinks that it's literally pointless.
I will basically never parse. If I ever parse, I do it one time, without a stim, without adrenals, just to, I don't know, check something. The one time I ever parsed seriously... actually, you know what? Never mind. I have never parsed seriously, if that's the standard.
I think there may be one situation where you may parse seriously, and it will only happen in the following situation. Expansion pack comes out. There are legitimate changes to your skill tree on all of your specs. Would you seriously parse to make sure you have the optimal rotation that is now different?
I don't think so. I think I've got a pretty good feel. Like, I didn't have to parse to discover my rotations in this expansion. I mean, the reason why I don't think parsing is helpful is you should already know what to do as far as your rotation goes, right?
Yes.
So everything that could help increase your DPS in a situation where it actually matters, which is in a fight, you have to learn by pulling the fight. Every little nuance of what can change your DPS numbers, what abilities can be most efficiently used when, You only learn those by actually doing a fight.
My main argument for why parsing is good, and people are saying in chat that it's about a lot of like big dick ego thing, and that's true. Like parse heroes are a thing. World
Yeah.
DPS leaderboards with parse dummies, which by the way I submit to, so obviously I'm a parse hero. It's absolutely an ego check, but there is an aspect to parsing that I think is helpful, and it's that when you parse enough, when there is high movement requirement in a fight, when there are heavy mechanics, not heavy like, oh, this is a hardcore raid, literally just mechanics that make you do more than parse a dummy parse on a boss fight, like aka anything not Nephra. To me personally, me having done the rotation for literally hours on end, when I have to move, I don't have to stare at my damn quick bar and tunnel and die to mechanics. I can move around and still have the rotation in my fingers. I know that for some players like you can do that, and it's just part of not being a shitty player. But for me, in order to not be a shitty player, I need enough muscle memory and enough sort of experience with the rotation to where when I'm in that situation, my uptime isn't potato, and I'm just like throwing DPS down the toilet.
Do you think it's... How much do you change your key bindings between specs?
So I was talking to Tibbers about this because he likes to have focus builders roughly on the same key for most classes, and he likes to have gap closers in the same place, and certain parts of the rotation will be the same. I do, so for instance, the only character I play seriously is Marauder Sentinel. For Annihilation and for Rage/Focus Watchman, whatever, I have my focus builders in the same place, I have my gap closers in the same place. For Carnage, and I don't know why, I have my focus build, like for instance, my main focus builder, Battering Assault, is 5 on on every spec except for Carnage. On Carnage, 5 is Gore. And it's not because, like, it doesn't make sense for Carnage to have the focus builder at 5. I literally had it like that because Carnage was the spec I learned as a player playing this game. I've done Carnage for about 2 years, and Annihilation I've been doing for about 2 months, and Rage I've been doing for about 2 months. So I set up my quick bars for those specs based on what made sense for, like, just where my hand placement was, where for Carnage, I set up the abilities in a non-optimal rotation setting because I was just putting stuff on the quick bar, whereas now it would be completely different. Like, if I redid Carnage on my keybinds, it would not look how I do it now. So, for instance, on your keybinding, if you look right there in your stream, on number 1 for me is my basic attack, on number 2 is Massacre, number 3 is Battering Assault, number 4 is Force Scream, number 5 is Gore, number 6 is Vicious Throw. If I did that backward, like if I changed it up, 5 would be Battering Assault, 2 would be Gore, 3 would be Massacre, 4 would still be Force Scream, and then 7 would always be Ravage. 7 is always Ravage on all of my specs. But like that's the thing. I don't change them for those 2 specs, but I still have issues. Like, I will still forget where things are in, like, Rage. Like, I will forget where I put fucking Force Crush or whatever.
Okay. The reason I asked you that question is because the only buttons I ever change between specs are the talented abilities, or in this game, skilled abilities. On my sniper, X is either corrosive grenade, follow through, or interrogation probe. G is either weakening blast. What is it in engineering? Plasma probe, or sniper volley. V is not used at all in marksman unless I've talented distraction. V is also cull or EMP. But every other ability is the same. I never move a key binding. So my muscle memory is, at this point, playing as long as I have, it's perfect.
Except for when you fat finger entrench or your sniper shield.
When I fat finger entrench, it's because it's because for some reason I have this really bad habit of spinning my mouse wheel, and entrench is tilt mouse wheel to the right. Or I think it's tilt to the left, and knockback is to the right. If I fat finger sniper shield, it's because I reached over too far, because it's over on one of the G keys on my keyboard, and it's right above shield probe, or it's right below shield probe. So I hit shield probe and I also hit sniper shield. But those are like not rotation related. No, I never put anything rotation related on the side like that.
One thing I do that may be inefficient, and people have asked why I do it. So I don't click. I'm not a clicker. But there are certain things I click so that I can still use my offensive abilities at the same time so that I'm not having to worry about my APM being lower. So, for instance, I have defensive cooldowns keybound, but I never actually use key bindings for my defensives. I always click them, and it's not because it's difficult to remember where they are. It's just that I don't want to have to be changing up how my hand is doing my rotation while I'm doing it. And I know that there are other people in this guild who do similar things. Like I know Deeps does about half and half. Like he doesn't click his defensive, but he'll click certain things in his rotation. I do not click Berserk or Bloodthirst or anything, but the issue is my key bindings for Berserk is Control 1. My key binding for Bloodthirst is Control 2, Predation's Control 3, and Frenzy's Control 4. And I have fat-fingered Bloodthirst at the worst time in council pulls before we got the kill. If you remember, I did it in Phase 1 like 2 minutes in and got really confused.
As far as I go, I keybind every key from tilde to 7. And tilde to 7... Q to T, A to G, Z to B, and then I use 4 extra keys on the left from my on my keyboard. Actually, I use like 6 extra keys on that side, but one of them's for mount and the other one's for PvP break. It's right where my pinky sits. I mean, I feel like that's enough key bindings.
See, I use a Nostromo. I don't even use my keyboard unless I'm typing in guild chat. That's it.
Yeah, I mean, I have buttons on my mouse that do stuff as well. I just don't have nearly as much. I have 4 on the side. I have 2 that change the DPI, and 2 more that are not related to regular mouse buttons. Those also are usually bound. Like, this one next to my left mouse button is bound to 9. And another one lower than that is bound to 0, because I don't reach over that far. With my left hand, that would be stupid.
Yeah, I've also found the other reason, back to the parsing aspect of things. Yeah. Like there are absolutely negative aspects to parsing. For instance, you will have certain players who will just become tunnel monkeys, and they will just try and get maximum uptime, even if it requires the healers to heal them through an incredible amount of stupid. You'll have players who will refuse to do certain aspects of the fight because they won't do as much DPS because they care about parsing. Like, there are people who, when you do, for instance, Corruptor Zero, they will never want to do the job. Like, some strats, your melee goes out and gets the first interrupt of the gold, and then you come back to the boss, like, just because they want the first interrupt done by melee. And there will be certain Marauders and certain Assassins who will refuse to do it because the expectation is that they have to save, like for Marauders, they have to save their gap closer, not to go to the gold, but to come back in case they get a mine. And there are players who literally won't do that job because, and I quote, I lose uptime on the boss. Those people are part of why there is a big negative for parse whores and parse heroes. People that are like that, who will literally want you to change the strat based on their ability to do DPS. That is where it's a negative. I absolutely believe that.
My position is not that it's ever a negative. I don't actually think that it is. I just think it's a waste of time. Which, I mean, that's a negative personally. It doesn't like hurt you, I guess. But I don't know. I think you could spend that time much better doing virtually anything else. This is all, of course, under the assumption that you know your class. If you don't know your class, you don't have you have no business being in a raid anyway. Go read a guide, and then, try it on a dummy. You don't have to stim, you don't have to adrenal, but try it on a dummy, and get familiar with your key bindings and your class abilities, but divorced from that, you are not going to squeeze out DPS by parsing for hours and hours on end. You're going to squeeze out DPS on fights that matter by pulling the fight. And sometimes it's not even sometimes you're not even going to see results just from pulling the fight. It may be that your strat or somebody else's execution is completely bad. That can be, that's like Council with fonts, or even stuff like Corruptor Zero, where people don't line of sight the ads around the corner. That will reduce your raid's DPS and your personal DPS if you are at all wanting to AoE those things.
Yeah, Taldari has an interesting question. It's if you have a group of 8 people and you know that all 8 of them are competent or good with their class.
That's a really good question.
What do you think of Parsec, etc.? And I'm guessing that the question is centered around the idea of having Parsec open during a raid. My view on that is that there are so many things you have to realize about the group composition and about your strat that parsing almost goes not out the window, but it needs to have caveats. Like, for instance, in, let's say, Phase 2 of Council, which is currently the most relevant DPS requirement in the game, there are certain classes that have a higher DPS ceiling in Phase 2 than others. Like, if you bring in, let's say, a Carnage Marauder, I don't know why you'd run Carnage on that fight. I still want to see someone kill it. As opposed to someone who's doing, like, Madness Assassin. Like, Madness Assassin will do much more DPS, not just because they parse higher, but because they can put their dots on multiple targets, and they can get more AoE potential out of the fight. And so when you see someone who's good at their class, and they're parsing lower, specifically in Phase 2, it could just be that their spec is not capable. They could be doing within 1% of the potential DPS of that class, but if it's lower than someone else on a better class, it's just going to be different. For instance, there's another thing, like, I'm an Annihilation Marauder when I do Council, and Ram is a Lethality Sniper, and, like, to a certain degree, he will be at a higher DPS level than me, because there's a ranged DPS able to put a dot on a different target without having to gap close. And, like, you have to realize that when you see the DPS meter, like, when Ram is doing 3-3 on Council, and I'm doing 3 to 3-1, and Deeps is doing 3 to 3-1, and Crack is doing literally 4K until we go into Phase 2. That's happening because of the way the mechanics are set up in the fight. Nobody's sitting looking at Parsec and saying, Ram, why are you 700 points below Crack? We know why he's 700 points below Crack. No one's asking the melee why we're not at 3-3, because it's kind of understood why Ram is at 3-3 and why we're at 3. The part where 8-man Parsec becomes interesting and becomes helpful, just to know where the numbers are on fights where you're clearly not meeting a check, and someone who is capable of, or a class is capable of a certain number, and they're not hitting it. Like back when Brontes was pre-nerf, when most kills you had your DPS at roughly like 2-5 apiece. If you saw someone below 2k, then it becomes helpful. But there are certain fights where DPS numbers just are not a helpful indicator.
To more direct, but yeah, to answer that question from my perspective, is if you know everybody's good, I usually don't even bother with it. Like, there have been entire raids where I've never logged into Parsec.
Yep, our title run, were you in Parsec for title run?
I was not in Parsec for title run.
Yeah, I don't think you were the week before either. And I honestly, like, if it weren't for the fact that I actually get motivation from looking at Parsec, like, I don't turn into a tunnel monkey that, like, just, like, lives in circles or whatever, but I do play better when there is a motivation of the rest of the group in Parsec. Like, I don't need Ramen there, but, I mean, as a general rule, I like seeing what Deeps is doing so that I can be more motivated. I like seeing what Crack is doing on Bestia. I like seeing what other players are doing on fights, because it reminds me, like, in the moment, that I always need to be on top of my game, because I'm not someone who's been in multiple tiers of Nightmare raiding. So for you guys, it's sort of par for the course where you understand the feel of progression raiding. For me, it's still a very new thing, and for me to be motivated and play at the high level required for hours on end during progression, it's not difficult, but sometimes it's nice to have a mental reminder of what you need to be doing. But that may be centered just to me. Like, I don't think that's necessarily a thing for everybody. I know it's not for people that are used to progression in general.
Yeah, I mean, out of anybody in Death and Taxes, I'm probably the one that cares the least about looking at Parsec. I care if I mean, if I'm sucking, I know it. So I don't need Parsec to tell me. But, I mean, I'm usually not sucking, so it's not, like, a huge deal.
I feel like Parsec isn't even needed to explain who's sucking, because at the very least, our guild admits when people are playing like shit. It's called out immediately, if not by themselves, by other people. So I don't even think that Parsec's required for an accountability standpoint, because we can all pretty quickly realize what's going wrong just by having brains. Like, the part where I like it is just to see... I like to see it, like, for instance, for our title run, when we killed Bestia, we blew through Bestia. We killed it much faster than we usually do. And it's nice to be able to benchmark that, see what we did there, look at the parses there, and then compare it to, let's say, the first time I was able to kill Bestia with you guys. It's nice to see progress on things like that, but that's really just a theory crafting thing. Like, that doesn't actually have any bearing on how we're doing as a guild.
Yeah, the benchmarks I use to gauge DPS are fight-related benchmarks, like what Justin just mentioned, like how fast we get through Bestia, how fast we get through Phase 2, how low is Brontis when we kill Styrak in Phase 2, shit like that.
Yeah,
I don't look at Parsec to judge that.
I know one of you and Deep's, one of your big benchmarks for how we're doing on Council is how quickly we're done with Calpheus. Like, it's very easy to tell if we're behind based on, I think, usually we're done in, a minute 15, a minute 20 or something?
I judge it based on SOAs.
How many SOAs is it? I've never... see, this is the thing. I don't base these things off of things like that.
If we push him before the second SOA, we're fine. If we push him after it, we're late.
Yeah, and then I know that...
And if we're way
ahead
of the second SOA... Yeah, if we're way ahead of the second SOA, we're way ahead. So yeah.
Yeah.
Right, go ahead.
And then I know part of what Deeps does is he'll look at when we push, and he'll notice the last time Tyrant's ported, and that gives him an idea of if we're ahead or if we're behind. But I think another good example of when you don't have to even look at Parsec to know if you're ahead or behind is when you're about to push the Masters and you get a death mark as you're trying to push them. That means that you are behind in the fight. Like, certain things like that are just time related, where the phases, where things happen at certain benchmarks of the fight where it's pretty obvious.
Yes.
Or like how many Kephises you get in Brontes, or like just aspects like that for me is what I would take. But I don't do that as well, or maybe it's that I'm either not as raid aware or my raid awareness isn't centered on timing. But I've never taken are we late or are we early based on those benchmarks. If it feels like we've been there forever, like, I know that we're behind, but I'm not knowing we're behind if it's by 5 seconds like you guys can.
I think it's something you acquire through experience with the fight. I mean, you've pulled it a lot. I've pulled it more. Like, I don't know, how many weeks did you come in before we killed it? It wasn't that many.
It was about a month into the progression of it. I came in.
Well, we killed it about a month after it came out, so...
Well, I don't know. No, not a month then. It was... hold on, actually, I can pull up exactly when. But it was...
Either way,
it was far enough
I've
in
got...
where you guys had multiple nights of council.
Oh, yeah, way more than that. Either way, I've had, probably a lot more pulls than you, so I know when things are supposed to happen just based on experience, and that's generally how I judge it.
Now,
but that's always been how I've judged how things should go in a fight.
Now, were you able to tell that, and this isn't trying to start a PTS conversation, but I know that when you guys were in PTS, were you able to pick up those where ahead, were behind things at that point, or did it take more hours to accrue that understanding? Like, was it week 1 on live you knew you were behind, or was it legitimately after a while you sort of got the idea? Yeah, on Council.
We hardly ever did Council on PTS, which is part of the reason why we suck so bad at it. I would be surprised if we got a half dozen pulls in on PTS.
And part of that is you guys had roster issues of who you even brought to PTS at the time. Like, if I remember right, you rarely, if ever, had Tenebris tanking in DP PTS, because at the time, wasn't he trying to get a job or whatever?
I don't recall, honestly. I don't even recall who was missing. I just know that we didn't get as much PTS time in as I wanted. Not near as much.
7/15 of this year is when I first rated DP Nightmare, by the way. So 7/15 was the first time I saw Council. It was 3 pulls, and then the next night we did 40.
I'm reasonably certain we killed it 2 days after that.
Yes, we did. Because we got to we got past phase 2, we were in phase 3, and like we died in phase. No, we got to burn phase, and a tank was dead, and we already had healers like completely out of resource, so we just blew the fuck up. Like after we killed the second one, or was it before we killed the second one? And then I basically was like, well, we're going to kill it the next day, and we killed it the next day.
Yeah. So yeah, that's when that happened. Anyway,
I mean, go ahead.
we're getting off into a tangent that's like very much not interesting to, I think, to anybody outside of Guild. So unless there's any more questions from the chat, and I'll give them some time to catch up, I think that'll be it for episode 2. But is there anything else you wanted to bring up, Justin?
I did want to talk about this. I don't